So we're back yet again. As far as what I've done, I haven't really done much because I'm still attempting to move into my house. I'm taking stuff out of my garage, dragging it in, throw it in my living room, and then trying to figure out what to do with it once I get it in here. And I'm finding all kinds of fun little things. I keep talking about the fact I have an automotive grade gyroscope. It's a single channel gyroscope that I wanted to play with again sometime. I knew it's in one of these boxes, and I've said for the last few meetings, I kept saying I was trying to find that. Well, I found that like a couple days ago, and I found a few other old ones. I was thinking it might be fun or informative. Just sit down someday and hook all those up and see how they act and what comes out of them. And let's see, was there anything else I was going to say before we get into this? Oh, I was going to say again the whole thing about, well, there might be links down below the video, but I haven't been doing that because I haven't taken the time to go back and index and build the descriptions on any of these things. So probably again this week I probably won't do that, but one of these days I'm just have to go back about 4 meetings and start watching the videos and do the indexing. And somebody say, "Oh, well, how can you do that far back?" Well, the stuff for ROS agriculture I did like three years after the fact, and that was really tough doing that because part of it is you couldn't see who was talking, so you don't even know who the person was, but they were just talking in the background. You could just hear them, but you couldn't see them. And there was stuff that, you know, it, a lot of that stuff got really tedious back then. But anyway, so right now I just got to back up like 4 meetings or so, whatever it is, and do the indexing. I'll just repost everything, and then we'll hopefully get back to the point where we're back, get fairly back to normal. And I'm trying to get my life back to normal, and that's kind of what's slowing me down right now. So other things I wanted to mention, I just got my email. I got like a weekly email from MPJA.com. It's that kind of a surplus, kind of a distributor of Chinese type stuff. And I got the email and it said something about, oh, you can get 50% off if you order over $100 worth of stuff. And I thought, well, that's pretty generous that they're doing that. And then in the same box, it said, here, maybe I can pull it up.
Tariffs.
That's what I'm thinking. So let's say MPJ. Okay, so I noticed it's going to have these stupid boxes on the screen. Just ignore those. Let's see. How do I do this? Say share screen. Go to this one. And it looks like I'm showing the right stuff. Let me drag this over here. And I noticed it said, we will be closing the doors for the last time. So it's tomorrow. They're closing down completely, but they're saying you can get 50% off anything if you order at least $100 worth of stuff. But I went and looked at it, and it turns out you go to the pages and they don't give you a way to order. So I think they just finally decided they're tired of playing with it. And hey, let's just go to a random page here. I think these that are the clearance items, blah, blah. Well, this doesn't show up like it used to anymore. So let's just grab a random one here. And see this one, there's no order box. You can't say, I want 1 or 2 of these. It just simply says, this is no longer available. It says, please check with our Asian affiliate. And it turns out if you go to the Asian affiliate, they just have a big long list of, I assume what they're doing, they just simply would order anything they had for parts. They would go to somebody in Asia and say, give me these parts, because it looked like, the exact same part numbers and everything. So apparently they were just simply just passing the stuff on. And I assume it is the tariffs that got them, because of all of a sudden, if your entire business is ordering stuff from China and reselling it, and then all of a sudden, you put 145% onto the tariffs or whatever, that they probably just said, yeah, we're just not going to deal with this. We don't know what the future is going to hold. So they probably just decided to trim everything down and just move on. So
Where's
anyway,
the link for their affiliate?
well, let's see. Let's go back. These pages are all done differently, but let's say here's the here's they give you an email, and it turns out they don't give you a link to their site. They just give you this this list, and say, here's the list of stuff. And these are all the parts that they had, and these are their part numbers. So apparently the, the part numbers are the same in Asia. But it says in order to do this, find out what you want, and then send an email to this person. They'll tell you what they're going to charge you for them. Because somewhere else it said there's a like a $50 line item. So if you wanted 6-position ATC fuse blocks, you have to order at least $50 worth of those for it to make it worth their trouble. And then it says, once you get everything figured out, then say, what are you going to charge me for this? And they'll tell you what the shipping is going to be, so they can add on shipping in real time. It seems like they'd make more sense if they just set up a website at the other end and say, here's what we got, and this is what it's going to cost you. So this is just more screwing around that I probably won't deal with it. So yeah. So anyway, we'll see if all these childish terrorists just disappear overnight. They might go back to what they were doing before. So anyway, that's what I ran into. And here's this list, and this goes on and on and on and on. This is all the parts that they've ever sold, I think. So they were just simply that just like me, they would sit down and look at this other guy's website and say, send me 100 of these, and order them. They would show up, and then they put them on their website, just mark them up, whatever it takes to make money. So see, here's some 5mm ultraviolet LED.
So just click on that and see where it takes you.
I don't think it takes you anywhere. It's just a list. Oh, it does. It takes you back to the MPJA website, where it says, oh, by the way, you can't buy these anymore. Oh, here's the thing where it says, please note the following intersections: $50 minimum per line item. So if you wanted to order this LED, you have to order at least $50 worth of these, whatever that comes out to be.
Holy cow.
And then it says $100 minimum per order. So if you want to buy, say, $50 worth of these and $50 worth of something else, that hits your minimum order. But you got to consider these people are making big boxes of stuff and then shipping them across the sea. And that's why you need like somebody at this end that will stockpile the stuff in their warehouse and resell it. So that they had this all figured out, and it must have been working pretty well until this whole tariff thing came up. So anyway, that's something I noticed. That seems to be the first casualty that I've noticed of, that I can probably attribute directly to the childish tariffs that are going on. You hear about it all the time. So, but anyway, let's see. Am I still sharing? Yes, I am. Okay, stop sharing. So I just wanted to mention that I used to buy a lot of stuff from there. And then after I retired, I stopped buying so much stuff. Just occasionally I'd order something, and then all of a sudden it's, oh, by the way, we're gone. We're closing the doors. So don't come back. So that's basically what that came down to. And let's see, other stuff on my list. I don't think I have anything else that I need to talk about. So other than if I someday find all my IMUs, I might set those up and experiment with those. And that brings up the concept we were talking about before we started recording, that it would be interesting to figure out what it takes on your vehicle if you're not using, say, GPS. What does it take to get your position from your wheel odometry? And I put a lot of time into that years ago, and I think I presented both on ROS agriculture meetings and our meetings. I was showing here's the results. If you tweak with it a lot and calibrate it really hard, I could drive around half a block where I used to live and be off by like 10 meters or so when I got all the way around. And that was going like I think 300 meters total distance or something. And it wasn't off. I could get to that point. I could get like 10 meters off at the end. I'd calibrate it and drive it again, and it'd be off the other direction. So on one hand, that can be made to work if you're not trying to drive in the grass and the mud and all this kind of stuff, because then it's immediately going to fall apart on you. Because I at least I assume it is. I didn't actually try that. That'd be another interesting thing to put on the list, that if you calibrate it to drive around, say, on a tennis court that's nice and flat and isn't all beat up, or just drive around the block on the sidewalk or on the street or something, and then go do the same thing in the grass and see what it does. And you could even have another one where you go, say, from a sidewalk onto the grass, up some dirt hills and all of this kind of stuff. And then the next thing, if you're trying to just drive say by using an IMU, if you're getting your heading from the IMU, and then you still need a distance on that because the IMU doesn't give you a distance, but you could take the distance off your wheel odometry, or various other ways you could come up with that, and do the same thing there and see how accurate can you get that. And so as Al was doing, he had his setup where he'd be driving around, and if his GPS drops out, he'd switch over to some other form of tracking. And I think he said he was using his wheel odometry. And so that there's a case where you just switch to the wheel odometry, and then hopefully they'll give you a good enough thing for, say, the next few seconds till it comes back. Or if it never comes back, then you have to decide what to do about it. Or you could do, say, part of the stuff from the IMU, and like I said, you could take the heading from the IMU and take the distance from the wheels, because the wheels seem to give you the distance seems to be fairly good on that. And then the heading from the IMU probably would be better than the heading from wheel odometry. So that's something that, if somebody would track that down someday. And also, just before we started, I searched on YouTube, and there are lots of people doing various experiments. So it might be worth digging through YouTube, or just going out on the internet and say, how does dead reckoning with, say, IMU or wheel odometry, and find people's experiments and see what they did, and see if they have any good ideas and so forth. So that says I'm digging through my boxes and moving them around, I get inspiration on some of this stuff. It's just that right now I don't have time to work on anything. So we'll see. Once I get to the point where I say, oh, I'm done playing with boxes now, I got to do something. So maybe I'll sit down, and I can sit down and research this stuff. And I notice I'm in the wrong view here. Anyway, so I can go through and just pick something and try doing it. And it's like I mentioned before, if I just take my robot outside and make sure all the sensors that are on it are working, and then fire it up and just go drive around my new world and record everything in a bag file, then I'd have like a reference of what I have and how well stuff's working. So that's another thing I can put, one of the first things I should put on my list. Another interesting thing, I noticed we have wild turkeys out in the yard out here. So there's about 5 or 6 wild turkeys that just kind of wander around the neighborhood. So I don't know if robots need to deal with turkeys or not, but probably they'll just either stand there and look stupid, or just stand there. And I don't know if they'll try to chase my robot. They might. That might be fun to do.
They chase people.
Yeah. They haven't chased me. I haven't seen them chasing anybody yet, but
Oh, okay.
that's kind of slowly wander around. But there's very few people out in the yard here, so I don't know. It could be they do harass people. I don't know. Geese, I think, will chase you, so you have to worry about that. So that's something I should put a camera on my robot, so as it drives around, you can see. And I don't know if you want to put, say, live video, or just have it so it does snapshots, like, say, once a second. It would just put a snapshot out to your bag file. And then when you're playing stuff back, you can see, what's the robot looking at. And if you got sensors running, you can say, I can see this on the sensors, but what is it? And then it'd show up on the video. So I don't know if there's any issues on that where people are going to complain, oh, don't take pictures of me. So that it's just one more thing, I guess. So
Yeah.
I think that's all I have to say for this week. And maybe one of these days when I get all caught up, I'll get back to doing real stuff again. So I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Maybe Al.
You want me to go, Bob?
Yep.
Okay, let's find the share button. As typical, I try to put in Slack at least 1 or 2 things that I'm working on. And at the moment, I'm trying to reliably get correction data passed from my base station to my rover, and to maintain RTK fix. So this is sort of the journey that I'm on. This link takes you to my Miro board, which just simply, I mean, the level of detail I've got on there so far on the base station is simply a little bit of an image of the RPI and the GPS. Currently, it's not very elegant, but I'm powering these 2 devices through this battery, which is charged via a 100-watt solar panel, powers 3 amp worth of 5-volt power, and this is the solar charge controller. Something worth probably noting is these are the messages that the base station, I played around with a number of different messages, but this is, call it the sort of the standard messages that I've configured it for. At the moment, this message 1005, I'm not getting that's not ending up outputting the data, the right position. So when I query that, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, and I'm working through trying to figure out what is it in my programming of the, or configuring of the GPS that's causing that. Because although I said I can reliably get fix, at the moment it's only with either using RTK to go for correction data, or having both the rover and the base physically connected via my laptop and passing the correction data from my base to the rover over a physical connection. It's not a wireless thing. It's something to do with the way I'm configuring stuff. So that's what I'm currently trying to work on. I did in this base station software, this image was just meant to say, hey, I'm keeping some logs about the RTCM messages, and those things can get pretty big pretty fast. So I've got some code in there to sort of only keep 24 hours worth of data and to compress it. This was showing the speed. This is just a little program that spits out, or part of the program that spits out, okay, so how many messages have I sent and what's their transmission rate? And this is, purely dependent on the GPS. And I have some ability to set the output rate on the GPS, but I said, hey, I want to send it all out at either 1 hertz or 10 hertz. I'm sorry, 1 hertz or 0.10 hertz. You can see sort of one of them matches 0.10. These others are not exactly what I had told it to do, so I don't know exactly what's going on there. Now I also check for errors, and although the screen print says 0, it's not uncommon to get 1 or 2 errors in a minute, so it's not pristine, but it's pretty good. Let's see, how do I close that screen?
Which GPS are you using as your base station at this point?
This PX1172RH. So it's a SkyTrack unit on a NavSpark board.
Okay.
Let's see. Back to here. The other thing, Jeff mentioned something in the last meeting that triggered me to say, hey, I'll do a simple test with my, I've got a couple of antennas lying around, and just to see if there's any differences. And this is one of those antennas that I got. So it's, the size of your hand, and it happens to have the same end connection as my NavSpark GPSs. So I didn't have to go and do any, have any adapters. So I thought I would test that against my generic, quote unquote, GNSS survey grade antenna, and I posted a couple of the results there. This and it was a very simple test. I just restarted the service and let it take 300 observations plus or minus, so that it was the same number of observations, and I was keeping track of these two particular data points that were represented here. You can see the different satellite services that it was able to see, and you can see the relative strength of those. And so based purely on those two pieces of data, and it's my understanding that lower is better, quote unquote. And so this black GPS antenna performed slightly better. This is just a cut and paste of some definitions that I found online for what these darn things, what that means. I mean, it's certainly not perfect and it's not long term, but it was, hey, if I have two different antennas plugged in, which of these is going to give me any indication of which is, you know, quote unquote, a little bit better after 300 observations. And so my next step at the moment is to work on, now I can't get to my screen here. There it goes. Work on trying to understand, this is a markup or a markdown file that I put out there on my base station, and it's just, I'm learning about my binary commands for the SkyTrack GPS units, and so I'm trying to document what do I know about those commands and what's the output that I'm getting from them, because it's well, it's a little bit beyond my skills on all this binary stuff, but and reviewing the hexadecimal and all that, but I'm sort of working my way through trying to set the position via Python, get, you know, query that 1005 message to say, did the position update? Because it would just be nice, I think, to be able to program this using Python from my RPi. I can always use the OEM software, but then it requires me to, you know, physically get a Windows machine connected to this. Yeah, I guess I could change this out for Windows NUC, but I haven't done that. You know, I've got these, whatever they are, $70 boards, or this is a 3, so we probably get that for $40 these days. So I think that's where I'm at the moment, trying to program this and pass correction data so that it's consistently keeping our TK fix. At the moment, that's really small, I know. So at the moment, I'm just taking the RTCM messages off of here and pushing it through a WebSocket, specifically port 6001, and then picking that up on the rover side, assuming it's connected to the same Wi-Fi. So that's my I guess topology on how to get correction data over to the rover at the moment. That's what I got. Over to you, Bob.
I'm going to sound like a broken record. Things have been, Murphy's Law is in effect again. Finally got the contractor to admit that he broke the septic tanks, but it took a long time and energy talking with him. I'm just about done cutting up wood from the road project. I took Jeff's advice and went into Home Depot and got a 1/2-inch piece of steel for an axle. And I couldn't believe the price on that thing. And then I think back to all the scrap iron I pushed out the door at the farm. It really got me upset. But anyway, I'm having troubles trying to make everything line up. Let's see if I can. Jeff and I played around with the share screen. I think I can do it. So I'm going to press share. And then I'll do screen. And start broadcast. Yeah.
We're seeing-
210.
We're seeing your hand over your camera at the moment.
Oh, okay. Huh. I don't.
It's starting to do something.
Okay.
Is everything on your screen, including notifications, will be recorded?
Yep. So what's the deal? Huh. I can't get it to do
And
anything now.
we have a little box that says screen broadcast. It says
Yep.
Zoom, 30 seconds, stop
Yep.
broadcast. But it's doing something different now.
Okay, optimize for video. Okay. I'm sharing my screen.
And maybe you just picked the wrong screen to share. Do you have an
Oh.
option on that?
Let's see one. Huh.
Stop share and reshare.
Okay, stop share. Okay. And then hit the share again.
And then just look at your options on what's it telling you your options are on share.
Oh. Screen photo, share camera. Maybe share camera. Try that
No,
one.
share
No.
screen.
Share screen. Screen broadcast. Zoom. Start broadcast. Huh.
Do screen broadcast.
Yep, there we go. The wheel's turning on Zoom.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing you're seeing.
Okay.
So what screen did you want to share?
Oh, I was gonna maybe try and show you what I've done with my robot, but
Can you swipe that window left or right?
not yet. I tried sweeping left or right. How about if I go back and I'll try oop. I'll go to share camera. Okay. And can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. I can't see what you're seeing, but here's the half inch. I'm having trouble. I thought I was getting this and this lined up, but every time I sink a screw, it would shift. So I still have to dig out my clamp someplace and do that. But I did notch the 2x4 like I wanted so that the motor butts right up against it, but there's still a little bit of slop in it. If I can see this, yeah, like that. So I've got to clean that up. The other thing is down here where the wheel meets the motor, I'm concerned it might get too loose, but like Jeff suggested, put a cotter pin over here and that'll help keep it closed that way and push it up against this 2x4. So, and then of course, cut the steel to appropriate site or appropriate length. The module I was talking about was this up here. So when I'm running in the house, all I want to do is hook up the motors and then play around with it. And then when it's ready for the outside Jeep, just lift up this whole module and set it on the Jeep and hook up the motors. So that's about where I'm at.
Looks very
Well,
cool.
well, I'm getting there. So, whoops, there we go. All done.
What'd you pay for the 1/2 inch rod?
I think it was like over $12 for that one piece. It just, I was so mad when I didn't even think to check the price on the shelf, and then they started ringing it up. And I said, holy buckets, maybe I don't want to do this, but I tried making the other one work. And I said, no, there's too much bushings and washers and everything. So I just used a 1/2 inch and just swallowed my pride.
Another thing to keep in mind when you go to buy that, if you look on the shelf, they'll sell you hot rolled or cold rolled steel. If you get
Oh,
the cold roll, I think is a lot cheaper than the hot rolled.
okay. Maybe that's what I got was the hot roll. But
And where did you get that? Was that at Fleet Farm or somewhere else?
no, Home Depot in Grand Rapids.
Because I think Fleet Farm, that kind of stuff is cheaper. If you
Yeah,
have one of those around.
they don't have Fleet Farm up here. It's called L&M, but it's kind of like the same thing. And from what I heard talking with one of the employees, L&M was here first, and then Fleet Farm came on the scene. Of course, they went all over the place then.
Yeah, I just noticed if you shop around these different places, if you figure out a place that's fairly cheap, then you can just go back there all the time and not have to worry about places like Home Depot or whatever. Oh,
Yeah,
it could be Home Depot is the cheapest in your area, so that I guess is
yeah,
something to just keep in mind where the stuff seems to be cheaper. And
yeah. So my goal for next week is be able to call up the Vex and run this thing around and up on the second floor, just to see if I can break something.
don't let it go down the stairway.
No, I'll close the door and I'll make sure my wife's stuff is out of the way.
Okay. Anybody got anything else?
No, not here.